Hi, good morning, everyone, and welcome. Welcome to this webinar on Accelerate Your Digital Strategy. I'm Manoj Menon, founder and MD of Quimbit, and I will be your moderator facilitating the conversation today. Digital is clearly one of the hottest topics in town ever since the pandemic has set in. There is a sense of urgency with which we need to adopt digital, not just for cost reasons, but to be able to serve our customers effectively. So challenges such as how do we deflect to digital, how do we automate, how do we leverage AI are the key themes that every customer service organization across the world is facing. And I'm delighted to have three distinguished guests with me who will work with me to help us understand how do we go about migrating to digital, how can we leverage digital more effectively. Allow me to quickly introduce the three distinguished panelists joining me. I have John Mark, Director of Digital and Conversational AI with Genesis, based out of Singapore. Good morning and welcome, John Mark.
Morning, Manoj.
Great to see you back in your favorite polka dot team. Thank you. Excellent. And
It's a pleasure. We hope everyone is safe.
Thank you. And we have Jasmine Go, Director of Solution Sales, Intelligent Workplace Teams at NTT. And Jasmine is also based here in Singapore, and she has advised worked with several clients to help drive their digital strategy. So welcome and good morning, Jasmine.
Good morning, Manoj. Thank you for having me.
Excellent. Welcome. And finally, I have Nicholas, who is the General Manager with Telecenter Service Limited, a leading outsourcer out of Singapore, which has also been in the thick of all the action associated challenges posed by COVID-19. So good morning and welcome, Nicholas.
Hey, morning, Manoj. Morning, everybody.
Excellent. Great. So we start with you, Nicholas. Nicholas, because you are an absolute practitioner, you are involved in, managing your team through this challenging times. Maybe, but first up, tell us a little bit about Telecenter, because there are not many large outsourcing teams based out of Singapore. And tell us about Telecenter, and most importantly, you are also a big outsourcer to government agencies in Singapore. How has the pandemic affected you? How did you respond to it? And that will be a great starting point for our conversation.
Sure, thanks, Manoj. Hi, everybody. I'm Nicholas. I'm the General Manager of Telecenter Services Private Limited. Telecenter has been in the industry for, I think, 20 years almost. And we are one of the largest, local BPO contact center in Singapore. Over the 20 years, we have gone through many phases of digital evolution. From a traditional call center where we take calls, we move on to emails. Now we have web chat, live chat, WhatsApp, social media. And over the last 2 years, we have actually grown to about 400 seaters, right? And recently, we actually embarked on an omni-channel platform, which, this is the path to digitalization, which we will actually talk about the challenges later on. Like what Manoj say, we have a lot of government agencies as our client. So during this COVID-19 pandemic, we faced several challenges. Firstly is the sudden announcement of the circuit breaker, all right, which actually rendered a lot of us having to work from home. So we had actually challenges in finding laptops, equipment to actually get our staff to bring back home to actually take calls at home or even do emails at home. Right. The second thing is, of course, the rush to access the home environment of the agents, because if they don't have a proper broadband, you actually have a lot of issue connecting to the voice, and we have a lot of voice quality issues. Secondly is, of course, handling government agency. There's a lot of strict compliances in terms of how you secure their data, PDP and stuff like that. So we have to actually get our agents to quickly sign a letter of undertaking to ensure that give them the proper briefing and all this. So The third one is, of course, facing issues in terms of updating them when they are working from home, right? Because when they're not in the office, you can't really huddle them and then tell them the latest situation that the COVID-19 is actually posing to Singapore, and also taking care of the well-being of the agents. So these are the challenges that we have to overcome. But I think we did pretty well. With our partners, we actually resolved quite a lot of issues in terms of connectivity, in terms of voice quality. So in today's webinar, I think we're going to talk about how the industry has actually changed and how organizations will have to adapt to digitalization. Right. We are quite encouraged to see that organizations continue to recognize CX as a core differentiator. Right. In this slide, which I'm going to push out to you. All right. So we can see that 81.6% of the organization actually agree that CX offer a competitive edge, right? And this is the primary differentiator. But yet, when we actually check, the benchmark, only 14.4% actually say that this is part of their organizational strategy. All right, and only 26.2% say the value of CX is fully defined and tracked by the organization. Okay. Okay, so despite a huge focus on CX, but we see organizations hesitating to actually migrate or accelerate their digitalization. Of course, we know there are challenges, but the challenges are really real. Being in telecenter, I see the challenges myself. Okay, and the question that we often have to ask ourselves, all right, will be these few questions that I've prepared. Adaptability. So we have 400 staff. So how are your employees reacting to this digitalization? Right. Being a higher management, we are also being asked whether these objectives are actually short-term or long-term. Okay. Thirdly is information. Do we have clarity of KPI success? In the past, we have different sort of KPI. Okay, and you can see here. Okay, the KPIs of today and the KPIs of tomorrow have changed. Okay, we used to have speed of answer, abandonment rate, average time in queue, first contact resolution, customer satisfaction as KPI of today. But I think for KPIs of tomorrow, all right, we talk about speed of answer for AI and human-assisted transactions. Okay, we also have hyper-personalization, real-time targets. Okay, direct resolution handle time, self-service utilization rate, and seamless customer experience satisfaction ratings. So we can actually see this challenge of migrating from the KPIs of today to the KPIs of tomorrow. Do we actually have, this clarity, the roadmap to actually do all this? And moving on, when you migrate or rather move into digitalization, okay, does this actually help in your productivity and efficiency of your staff? And does this digitalization live up to your expectations? And of course, being a BPO, we will always face clients asking, when is your digitalization going to complete? How accurate it is? Do they actually have the patience to wait for you? Okay, and lastly is, how do you measure your success? And most importantly, the return on investment.
Excellent, Nicholas. Thank you. So KPIs, how difficult is it for you to measure these KPIs today, Nicholas? Especially the new KPIs that you're putting in place.
Definitely, I think adaptability is one of the challenge that we face. How staff adapt to the new set of KPIs and how they move from the old ways to the new ways. So we have to actually, engage them, get them into the company's mission and vision, how we want to move forward in our roadmap. So it's a very real challenge, definitely. But I think with more partners helping us, I think we can overcome this.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Nicholas. Now, allow me to bring in Jasmine. Jasmine, Nicholas talked about, migrating and putting these new measures of success for, digital. But what are the biggest challenges that you have seen, as someone who's helped so many companies in their customer experience journeys and accelerating their journeys to digital? What are the biggest challenges you have seen? Is it technology? Is it people? Is it processes? How do you see this journey to digital, and what are the biggest challenges that companies are facing there? Jasmine?
Sure. So Nicholas spoke about KPIs, right? And these KPIs has evolved over time as we progress. And ultimately, they're still intended for the same people, the same group of people, that is our human workforce, which is exactly that. That's why we bring us to the next topic. And you mentioned about all these different challenges that we are going to embark on. And this is actually very close to our heart. And I'd like to touch on the human element, because people connect with people and people buy from people. So when we embark on any automation and digital initiative, these are some of the lessons that we learn from the field. Let me just bring up one of the slides. Can you see? Okay.
Yeah.
So we talk about the first point, right? How do we address digital anxiety? So I think first thing first, we have to involve the people early. Very often, automation or digital initiative starts off as an IT project. Nothing wrong with that, right? But if you're able to involve the business stakeholders early, especially those who are really talking to the customers, and we are talking about operation people, customer service agent, because they are already on the front line resolving all these issues. So it's a good way to have them on board early so that they can contribute ideas and help develop all this effective solution. Actually, another one very interesting way I think that we should do, and we undermine this, that is to do polling. So we ask our people what's working and what's not. Sometimes we undermine this step, but it is the voice of the people that can be heard. And then when you document it, it can be a very powerful source of information when you embark on all this initiative, because you have the fundamentals there, you have the foundation on how people they see when they try to adapt to all these new changes. Number two, take away the fear factor. Show the value of automation and digital, for example, in pushing all these maintenance services or inquiries to bots, because you just don't have enough to go around. So this is to make sure that you have the channel to serve the critical mass, right? We don't implement project and then expect people to adapt. We have to educate them on how the automation works and how you make the life easier. Take away some of this routine, boring aspect of the work, and essentially what you are doing here is you're upgrading and you are bridging the digital gap. So we train them to work with the bots. This will take away some of this fear of technology, right? So that the performance and the job satisfaction can go up and not come down. The third point, we talk about value and use, creativity and empathy. So when we say train people to work with the machines so that they can be more effective, and then they can meet also their performance target or KPIs, Nicholas has mentioned earlier, there are also characteristics, right, that today the machine or the bots don't have yet. And we have to acknowledge that, right? And only the human can teach them. So especially, again, the human that we deal with our customer on a daily basis, day in, day out, because they are the one on the ground. Actually, they do know best. The one of the last point, leverage on your existing asset. This one, I will spend a little bit more time explaining this particular point, because sometimes we've forgotten that we do have a lot of data and information at our own backyard. But the question is, are we utilizing them properly, right? When we rely on all this empirical data we already have, and I'm talking about things that are already default, like voice recording. Every organization today, whether you run a contact center or whether you're in a financial institution, we do have a lot of recordings, right? And we record them for different purposes, whether it's for compliance or whether it's out of obligations. And once you record, it gets stored for many years, right? 3, 5, 7, and even 100 years for some of the financial institutions, because they have a term life policy that they need to keep the records, because you buy a term policy that lasts you till your grave, right? So in the early days, earlier on when technology wasn't that so sophisticated, we actually have to randomly listen to all this voice recording. But you just can't simply go through every one of them because it's humanly impossible. Even if you hire an army of people, you can't because you're competing with time, right? But however, as we mature and the technology is able to accommodate all these requirements, today we also lower down the barrier of cost so that this is available for us to extract the richness sitting in a gold mine that is now permissible to every one of us to get it out. So I think this is one way to jumpstart your wealth of library, especially for a chatbot or a virtual agent sort of initiative, because you'll be able to learn firsthand on today how you and your customer are interacting on a day-to-day basis. And this will essentially also help sort of design a effective conversational flow. I think we have gone through many different formats, different rounds that every time when we go into a digital interface, we always say the bot don't understand what I'm saying, or I don't get served on the particular channel that I first interacted on. And once you have that and the experience is not on par, the customer will then abandon that channel, and then you start having a volume surge on your call center, because it is not necessary that sometimes just because you open up another channel of the volume will come down. Sometimes on the contrary, it's actually the opposite. Yeah. So these are
Excellent.
my points.
Thank you, Jasmine. But Jasmine, tell me now, when you do about, let's say, we talk about using digital, you talk about using bots, how do we justify the ROI? How do companies go through this process? Because you are also saying, hey, I'm going to make some of my staff redundant. And these are very tough conversations to have. So what has been your experience? How do you, justify this, and how do you take care of the teams who will be potentially, may not be able to find suitable jobs as they transition to digital?
Sure. I think first we have to acknowledge and not shy away from this kind of conversation, because it will happen and it's actually right in our face. And in a typical business justification for technology, it is very common that your ROI is what you just mentioned, is reducing the workforce, right? So that you do more with less, or you do more with the current, because they said, sorry, I don't have budget for you to increase your resources. You just got to play with what you have or do with what you have, right? And then ultimately replacing them with technology. So I think if we're able to have a very clear communication plan, and we are able to cascade this level of transparency and educate our employees that, hey, if you are first in line to be familiarized with this automation technology, and you essentially, after going through that journey, you become a super user or administrator, you will stand to gain when the inevitable happens. So in adopting a new, very sought after skill set, they also move up their competency up the value chain, right? And when it comes to commanding a new post or senior post or even a higher remuneration, because every organization we move in different pace. We are all heading the same direction, but the pace is different, right? From organization A, B, C in terms of the maturity. So I believe if we're able to nurture this pool of talent, and ultimately it will go around and benefit everybody in the community, because just so it is the expertise and the specialization is quite scarce. Everybody is vying for the same set of people. But if you're able to educate this right at the very beginning to our employees and have this transparency in terms of communication, I think they will stand to gain. And they will understand what is it for me and why I need to embark on this. Because ultimately, it benefits them as an employee, as an individual.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, Jasmine. I see that we have some questions, and let's keep the questions coming. You don't need to wait till the end to put the questions across, and I'll get Jasmine and Nicholas to answer these questions as well as we go along. But allow me to now bring in John Mark. John Mark, by virtue of being with Genesis, you also have such a great global exposure to some of the world's best case studies in terms of transitioning to digital. And would you like to maybe share with us some of the best practices of global companies as they have gone about this digital journey? So welcome, John Mark.
Thanks, Manoj. Yes, sure. I mean, moving to digital or transforming your contact center to more digital is in all conversation. I mean, for a couple of years already. But still, we are in 2020, And the why and how to get there is still a challenge for a number of companies. So what I'd like to do is not providing my own Jean-Marc's view today, but really share two really great insights from two customers in Europe. So from Vodafone Germany and Swisscom. They've started their digital transformation, or at least accelerating their digital transformation journey 2.5 years ago. And now they're extremely mature. So we asked them recently, let's say, why and how did you do that? And as a gift at the end, I will give you some results because the results are great as well. So let me start with the why. And there were quite interesting things here. So when we asked them, okay, why did you do that? You were already somehow digital. And they say, yes, actually, we didn't want to follow a trend or even to be innovative, right? It's really KPI driven. A company has 3 KPIs: best customer experience, operational excellence, and actually revenue growth. And we really want to align this digital transformation on those 3 pillars. And actually 2 are the most important: is experience, customer experience, and operational excellence. So on the customer experience part was really interesting because they started, our customers are digital, so we need to be digital. Well, it's a no-brainer, everyone talks about that. But what's really interesting is they say, moving to digital is not to deflect contacts, right? We are premium brands and we cannot allow, our products are maybe more expensive, so we cannot allow, it's not a strategy for us to deflect contacts. And actually moving to digital will allow us the opposite, spending more time talking to our customers or with our customers. Another point is, getting more personal. If you use digital channels in your contact center, you get more data. You need more context data information that allows you to be more personal and also allows the agents to be more personal, something you can do much better. So they define I like that because it's very simple, like KPI, and stick to it. It's the quality, so the customer experience on digital needs to be the same as voice. So not higher, but definitely not lower. Simple target, right? And I see that more in some companies. They say, okay, digital is on the side and we can allow to have less quality. No, same quality. But of course, when you need to deliver a better customer experience and also deliver on the company strategy to be more efficient, right? You also need to look at this operational excellence pillar. And still today, I see a lot of companies say, and Jasmine, you touched a little bit on this, is, if we open more channels, we'll kind of open a new pipe or a new highway, and that will create more volume and will create therefore more cost. So this is not really what we want to do, and definitely not in these times. So what they've done is they were extremely clear from the beginning, is that this incremental volume of traffic is not purely incremental. There will be a switch from traditional channels like voice to digital. But doing that, when you move to digital, it's much easier to automate than voice. So actually you will bring much higher efficiencies doing that. So again, very simple KPIs is the FCR will be higher. So they defined from the start is higher because you get more data when you interact with someone on digital channels, more context. So you can achieve more FCR. Vodafone, they call it a CSR, is like a cross-channel service resolution rate. It's interesting. How to offset also this volume is the higher agent productivity, because you've got concurrent interaction handling. You've got, if you use to messaging, you have asynchronicity. You can deliver higher agent productivity. And of course, and they were unanimous on, when you open digital channels, you have to think about automation from day one. I'll touch that a little bit later, and you need to look at automation rate. So again, very simple KPIs defined from the start with numbers behind it, and get the company adopting that. So that's on the why. How is a bit more, it's like a recipe, right? And we see some customers, they start from a technical point of view. We start piloting things and then figure out, okay, now we need management approval, or we need to figure out whether the business case will work or not. So this is the journey both Vodafone and Swisscom took. And we can spend hours on this, but I will keep it short, I promise. First is really have a clear strategy. So they both went to messaging, and they went WhatsApp because it's Europe, but we see that in Asia a lot. It could be Line or it could be other messaging platform or WeChat. They went messaging, and now messaging is really one of the key digital channels used, more than 60% actually of the traffic of digital. They were looking at digital on voice later, and actually looking at it currently. So this strategy needs to be clear from the start. And then internal alignment is also very important. Yeah, getting management approval is obvious, but we still see today that it's still difficult. And again, if you've got your why clear and your KPIs clear, it's easier. And I think Jasmine, you touched a little bit, is involve the customer care operations from the start, right? Not later. That they really help defining this alignment and the strategy together, and clear ambition. On automation, that's very important on digital. So you need to start from day one. But doesn't mean, so everyone's talking about chatbot currently. Swisscom, for example, they started to say, okay, well, we are not ready yet to embrace chatbot in that full extent, but we need from day one, we need a routing bot. So just a bot that will actually take the intent, what do you want? And we'll pass on this interaction to a live agent. No more, that's it. Everyone is looking at FAQ bots, but both of these companies say, well, FAQ bots is good, but when their customers are contacting us, they want the task done, right? Whether they talk to an agent on digital channels or whether it is completely automated by a bot that is transactional and will get my task done. FAQ is nice, but it's a bit more or less pushback. It's a bit of a strategy of actually containing the contacts. So they started with routing, a bot to route this interaction to actually a real agent. And now they've got implemented some transactional and conversational capabilities in their automation strategy and bot. And next point is I've grouped them together is the entry points and communication plan. So you need to be absolutely clear what are the entry points. So where customers are coming on messaging. So if you look at Vodafone, WhatsApp is advertised everywhere, on invoices, on contact us, on the website, in the mobile app. Even if you call, when you call and the contact center is busy, there will be a prompt telling, okay, well, actually, you can continue. We know that you are using this messaging, this WhatsApp, for example, and we can continue that conversation on if you want to. 6% of their contacts are actually switch from the IVR to digital channels. Be clear always. I mean, the chatbots and the conversational AI capabilities are improving, but really be clear that, okay, well, we want you to have the task done and we'll transfer this interaction to agent when required and if required. No worries about that. We'll touch it maybe later in that conversation in some questions is the agile journey. Do we know when we start? They started 2.5 years ago, accelerating the journey. And do they know exactly where they will be today? No. So you have to think up front is, do I have the right architecture that I can grow? The channels may change over time, right? And they may consolidate, and they will consolidate, I guess, in the future. What to do with automation, and it's not something you do and it's done, it's something you continuously do. So they had to create an agile team setup. Now at Vodafone, there are about 40 driving digital transformation in the contact center, a team of 40 really driving that strategy. And the performance analytics as well is always important, it's a no-brainer. But getting the KPI set earlier, as we've seen before, but also a mean to monitor them, right? That's your best ally always, to prove that you're doing right or to adjust if you're not going the right direction. It's always obvious, but always forgotten in that journey, and I've seen that before in my previous life. So on the last part, I'd like to show you some results because they're actually fantastic. In terms of adoption, between 10 and 15% of all the contacts are now digital for these two companies. 10-15%, right? They believe that 25% will be the share of interaction next year. And Vodafone even told us that they really believe, and that's a trend now they see, that within 2 to 3 years, half of their total volume of interaction will be over digital channel. You know? And Jasmine, you touched a little bit about that. The total volume is actually got stable. They got new products, they got more complex products to sell, more customers, but the total volume of interaction is stable, or actually slightly down. That means there is a shift in the channel usage. And in terms of agent, because I've got that question, how many agents do I need on digital, or how many do I train? So currently they have more than 10% of agents that are trained. Actually, Vodafone has much more than that, and nearly 50% that are trained and ready to handle digital channels. Experience, what they've reached now, and it's again very important, it's on par with voice. It's not higher, not lower, it's exactly the same. It's where they wanted to do, where they wanted to go. Right? And they also reported that, well, if you move to digital and even automation, really try to change, so build those conversations designed for the customer and not on processes, because that becomes very complex.
Yeah.
Efficiency, that's on the mouth on all the people. Is it more efficient, right? FCR, the same. For Vodafone, same FCR as for voice. Swisscom, higher FCR than voice. Again, because you get more data, so you can actually route this interaction much better. Productivity is higher, much higher, 5-10% higher. You always look at sales conversion, because contact center are doing a lot of sales conversions as well, and it's the same level as voice. Again, ticking in the box as the plan they wanted to do. So what does improve this efficiency is really concurrency. So having concurrent interactions when you deal with chat or messaging. Asynchronous, and that is a game changer, actually, where people actually sending you a question, but they don't necessarily expect you to respond immediately. If you respond within 15 minutes, or right now it's fine, but if it is the next day because you're closed, it's also good. So they say the customers are really, because they're used to WhatsApp or messaging application, they're really comfortable with waiting to the next day, right? It's very important though that you size your contact center in a way that the next day you've got more resources at the opening of your contact center. On the automation level, there's a lot of questions also on automation level, what the automation rate you get. So here we've got between a bracket or range between 10%. So Swisscom is at 10% because they really started with more a bot that routes the interaction. And now they are improving this chatbot to actually do the task from end to end. Vodafone is at 44%. So 44% of all digital interactions are automated with the bot. And a fun fact as well is they said actually you need a chatbot not only to automate this interaction and to make them great, but also to curate those conversations, because they got, while you can send pictures and over messaging channels, they got people starting sending pictures of their dog and or themselves on holidays. So they really the bots is actually helping to curate and to clean a little bit this conversation where you don't need especially to respond. So those are great insights that we can discuss further in that conversation.
Fantastic, Jean-Marc. I think the how, the why, and the results. Incredible. I have lots of questions, but maybe here's what I would like to do. Actually, I want to hear from Nicholas. Nicholas, when you see this results, what crops up in your mind as a user, as someone who is managing the operations? What do you want to ask Jean-Marc?
Well, I think the question is really, as a BPO, how sustainable are these, technologies going to be, and whether, at the end of the day, management will look at, are we going to dump in these few $100,000 for a technology that probably lasts for 1-2 years, or it's going to be a long-term, strategy where, the users will continue to use that platform. So how confident, are we that this model can sustain?
Great. Jean-Marc, is this sustainable? Is this results that we are seeing sustainable?
That's a great question. Thanks, Nicholas. Well, I think I don't have a crystal ball. What we can say, I think, when you look at messaging and the way we communicate every day, I don't think there will be a way back. It's here to stay. Even Mark Zuckerberg from Facebook say one day, okay, well, there's only one thing people do more than social media is actually messaging, and I don't see that fading in anytime soon. Maybe the channels will be different, and I guess they will be different. They will merge. There will be new ones. TikTok, but I can't suspended in the US, I think, last week. So it may change, but the way people communicate won't change. And I think on AI, we are still at the beginning, but on putting bots and on those communication channels, I don't think there will be a way back, because now it's done much better and better. Technology is really maturing. Is much better. So things will change. And that was also a feedback from Vodafone and Swisscom. If you get your technology right, then you can adapt. So they started with SMS, and SMS didn't really work out very well, and they spent like 3 months releasing the first channel. But now every time they've introduced a new channel, like WhatsApp, it was 3 weeks, because the operations, your contact center is ready to embrace them. It's the same way. It doesn't matter the channel, to be honest. And also your architecture is ready to embrace those. So it can go. The incremental effort or cost is very limited to change the channel itself. But the way your agents are handling those interactions remains the same. The reporting, the workforce management remains the same. So the initial investment that you made are here to stay. It's my way. The other thing is, people start looking at. We've heard about digital versus what. Voice. Well, and now people and a lot of companies like Vodafone and Swisscom and others, they start to speak differently. They talk about real-time interactions instead of digital. So real-time being voice or being video or being live chat, right? Versus non-real-time or asynchronous conversation like messaging or email. So voice, if you look at voice as well, it used to be non-digital, but now we are automating, and we've done a lot this year and last year, starting automating voice with artificial intelligence. So this voice now has become also digital. So the way people categorize digital has changed. I think we won't be calling it digital next year anyway, because it's too blurry these days.
Okay.
Got it. Great. Hey, Jasmine, you want to comment? I request people to keep sending the questions. I will start taking the questions shortly, but maybe Jasmine, you want to comment about, the journey to making this possible and the sustainability of this that Nicholas talked about.
Yeah, sure. Right to Nicholas' questions. I think when we talk about sustainability and even the investment of the project, I think it's very important that first we get our foot right, because there is no one that can do all. So very importantly, you need to partner right. When I say partner, I think today the vendor and supply relationship has also evolved and changed. People look for partnership that will last a longer term instead of short term. So when you have a roadmap that you can plan with a partner for 3 to 5 years, your interest will be invested together with the partner's interest as well, because we want to make each other successful. And sometimes the partnership is not just bi-directional. It could be a tripartite relationship, for example, entity, Genesis, and the client. So I guess when we come and form all this partnership, then we are totally aligned in terms of, number one, the investment. Number two, what is a fair exchange of investment that can be put into the technology place. So, and I think when you talk about the future of the roadmap, again to John Mark's point, right? We don't have a crystal ball, but what we can see from the trending moving forward is correct messaging is here to stay. I don't think it will go anytime soon, honestly. And second part is that because we are still natively, we're also very used to what is going on around the world. And in fact, a very interesting conversation that we had with our client just a couple of days ago is that voice and video will come to a convergence. And this was interesting to note because you want to ride on the same wave as everybody is so very comfy with being in front of the camera. You don't want to go back to the old ways of doing things. So when we talk about the new ways of doing things, the new normal, in fact, the exact statement that the client used wasn't the new normal, it was the new better. So when voice and video converge into one, the quality of the interaction becomes a lot more important and to the customer that they're serving. So I would say quality of interactions will come up, and maybe nobody will probably think about the duration or even the average handling time anymore, because is that really a right KPI to even measure? Probably not. It's probably the quality of the interaction that you want to measure. And it can come with all forms. But this is my take.
Excellent. Great. Jasmine, thank you. Maybe I will take there's a question for Nicholas. In terms of the new age KPIs, you talked about self-service utilization. How do you make this technology? The technology shift is easier, but the bigger challenge is the change management. How do you get the users to do self-service rather than moving into requesting for service or talking to an agent? So you did talk about training your teams to be able to move in that direction. And Jasmine also talked about what do we do to get our users to also migrate on this change?
Yeah, I think this is a very good question, and a question that was probably people were asking 10 years ago, how do we move users to self-service, self-help? But I think, in this environment, it has changed a lot. Now the people are asking, why can't I do this myself? Right. So I don't think there is a real challenge of actually moving users to self-service. But a more valid question will be, there's a difference between an in-house call center and a BPO. All right. So for in-house call centers that they have their own contact centers, they would like to reduce costs, reduce hiring, upgrading their staff to do second level kind of transactions. Whereas as a BPO, we fear that actually, because by moving to self-service, we're actually losing business, to be frank. And we're going to lose the people that we hire for to support our clients' customers. So, so to answer the questions of how to move, to self-service is something that we can't question anymore, because the client also want to reduce the cost. All right, and they will sort of ask us how do we want to do it. And like what Jasmine said, our vendor-supplier relationship has changed. Okay, we no longer ask the vendor for 3 quotes, and then we choose the best vendor, and then we continue from there. And then in another platform, probably we look for another 3 vendors, and there's no continuity. But in terms of partnership, I think, working with the same partner over the years with the roadmap, we should be able to move this user to self-service, okay, and using the platform that actually integrates easily with what we really have. Right. I hope that answered the question.
Yeah. John Mark, you want to comment on it? I remember the TOT case study in which, during COVID, we saw this massive move towards users really want to self-serve themselves, validating what Nicholas is saying. It's not, you don't need to train the users are hungry for it and they're ready to solve the problem themselves.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think we need to push users to self-serve. I mean, today we choose our bank, we choose even our utility company, trading platform. We choose it because it has a great self-service app or website or moving forward conversational AI interfaces. So it has become an element of choice. So we want to do things quickly in general, as you meant. So I don't think we need to force that. I do realize though that it's not always easy. There are things we can't do on self-service. You mentioned TOT. So during the COVID-19, again, if you have an inside-out thing to say, okay, well, this is all the calls, all the contacts I want to deflect, you're going wrong. Because people in this case, they really had very difficult questions. So they didn't come with a specific question, they came with a problem, right? So this is my issue, this is my personal issue, this is really for me. So therefore, maybe there's some self-service for me, but I don't want to pick and choose because, I don't know. I want a solution to my problem. So I think this personalization aspect and going to digital, we get so much more data, so much more analytics of things we do right or things we do wrong. or that things we miss completely, we can increase a lot the rate of self-service. And we see that in IVR already with putting some conversational AI that makes that experience so much easier. So you don't have to navigate through menus. You can write, you ask your question and write, you've got the right path, whether it is an agent or whether it is a self-service application, without you losing a lot of time. And at the end, I try to get somebody to speak to.
Yeah. And I also, one of the conversations that came up as we were talking was also about the conversational AI so that itself also is got a rich variety of information. And I think it was Jasmine, you were talking about how that is such an underutilized asset as we move towards digital.
Sorry, okay. Can you hear me now? Yeah. So absolutely. I think when we come to conversational AI, we have to first thing first, we have to understand how our customers are interacting with us. That's why making use of the empirical data that we already have, I think is actually one important point to leapfrog or jumpstart your conversational AI initiative. So you don't have to spend time in creating a design flow that you think is right, but not necessarily the same communication or the same style of conversation your client is interacting with you. So when we rely back on how today, how is the conversation is being conversed, then we can then design a better flow. So I think sometimes when we go into certain conversational chatbot, we realize is like what John Mark said, it's more of an FAQ. Not that it doesn't work, but does it serve the purpose of engaging? Because ultimately, the technology and the platform that we put out there is actually a tool for us to build the relationship with our customer on the daily basis, right? So I think we cannot undermine all this technology and tools because it is a way for us to form that bond between the customer and the organization.
Okay, excellent. Good point. So some quick questions. Some quick questions that I would love to get some quick feedback from you guys as we look towards towards the end of this webinar. Number one is cloud. How critical is that as an enabler of this digital? Has that been a prerequisite for the transformational journeys of Vodafone and Swisscom? I want to also hear from Nicholas. What does he think about cloud and how does that fit in the long term, and maybe even from Jasmine. So maybe we start with you, John Mark. How critical is the cloud as a fabric to this migration towards digital and long-term roadmap on digital?
Well, it's really critical. Allow us to go fast and react faster as well. We've seen that during the COVID-19 situation, where starting on longer projects, and suddenly it was not about making a long project shorter, it was to make it the next day or the next week. And that was enabled with the cloud. When you look at AI, of course, is cloud native, so we need that power of the cloud. So it is really an enabler to go faster and to so for us, the technology partners, to deliver functionalities every single week. Again, we don't have a crystal ball, but we can react much faster. And when we deliver new functionality capabilities that meet the client's requirement every week instead of every quarter or half year, it's much better.
Okay, great. Nicholas, a quick comment from you, and then I got another question. What do you think about cloud, and how crucial is that in your future journey?
Okay, cloud. To be honest, we love to go on cloud, right? I think it helps in terms of having an omni-channel that will be able to map your customer's journey. But we have a problem here with cloud because of the government agency. To be honest, so cloud is something that the government have some reservations for, because of their sensitive information and all this. So it brings back again to how we actually convince, our client to go on cloud, to ensure the security of the cloud. They have a perception that cloud is not secure, but we need to change that mindset, because cloud could be more secure than premise-based technology. So to me, cloud is a very important and critical factor to go on to if we want to actually move on to a higher customer experience or even hyper personalization.
Yeah, great point. And John Mark, just to confirm that the instance we are seeing other governments beginning to adopt cloud more aggressively, and in Thailand it was a cloud service that TOT built the fabric on.
Yeah, the acceptance to cloud, and we see that in Australia, we did see that in Southeast Asia, and indeed in Thailand. The acceptance to cloud has dramatically changed. So of course, it needs to be we need to be compliant, and data needs to be secure, and that's allowed by the cloud. But the concerns are because it needs to be more agile, we need to be more reactive, we need to scale much faster as well. We need to allow our agents to work from home. All these things took priority in those concerns, and that really changed the way people did think in the last few months.
Excellent. One other quick question is associated with video. Where do you see video? Are you seeing more clients asking for video getting embedded into certain processes? Is that becoming a crucial? Do you see that being very big moving forward? What do you see as percentage of total from a video standpoint? We start with you, Nicholas. Nicholas, is video important in the kind of work you do? Is that being requested? Do you see certain processes enhanced by video? And then maybe Jasmine and John Mark.
Okay, at this point, video is not something that our clients are actually asking for, but I do see the future in it, because as the AI comes into the picture, the loss of human touch is getting bigger. So if the query cannot be resolved by the AI, it usually goes to an agent, the second level. And I think with the video, it could actually help get that human touch back, instead of hearing voice, because nowadays AI voice sounds very human as well. So that could actually help, in the world of digitalization, that we have to make sure that we don't lose the human touch.
Excellent.
But
Jasmine?
my client will continue there.
Yeah. I think at this juncture, the video adoption for contact center or customer service centers are not exactly that widespread yet. But I do foresee it will, like I mentioned earlier, it will converge, the voice and video coming together. As what Nicholas has rightly pointed out, the AI element, the human element, this has to balance somehow. So today we are really being constrained by the physical face-to-face, right? So imagine if we still don't see the human and put a face on that particular name. Sometimes we can't have the sense of biophilia, the sense of, like I'm talking to you, I feel a sense of belonging, that kind of feeling. So I feel that video moving forward, it could be the new massive channel to adopt. But again, never say never, right? Yeah.
Excellent. Great. John Mark, anything to add on a video front?
No, I think video will play a role in the channel mix. I don't see that superior or better. It does play a role. We've seen that during the pandemic as well. So for government agencies, I've been queuing at government agencies to actually have my meeting on videos. We see a lot of government doing that in the banking industry. So yes, I think it's an important tool, or not tool, but a communication channel within the channel mix.
Excellent. Great. Hey, thank you very much. Allow me to quickly summarize, some of the key takeaways. As we started, I think we started off with this wonderful slide from Nicholas, which talked about the KPIs of tomorrow, how we are moving towards hyper-personalization, real-time targets, self-service utilization rate, and seamless customer experience satisfaction ratings. I thought that was really good overall measures of digital success that we can start embracing, moving forward. Jasmine talked about, I think, managing the change and how do you actually bring along the entire team, because as much as there is technology, it is also the people part, and how do we bring people together with you on your journey to drive the change. I thought the case study and the results were incredible. But the how-to of contact center digitalization and that roadmap, which was a good 7-step roadmap, which was shared, which Vodafone and Swisscom adopted, starting with messaging to internal alignment, automation, communication, agile, and performance. I think it's a great roadmap that could be adopted by every company. It's amazing to see that somebody like a Vodafone can get 44% bot automation rate. That's just incredible. So you can do so much more with that level of automation, that you can use the resources to really enhance the overall levels of customer experience. So with that, I think a big thank you to our 3 distinguished panelists, John Mark, Jasmine, and Nicholas. Thank you for sharing and sharing your learnings and your best practices. And this journey of digital will continue. I think we may be still on day 1 of this entire journey. There is so much more innovation that can happen as long as we are so obsessed around with the customer at the heart of delivering those experiences. Yeah. So thank you, John Mark. Thank you, Nicholas. Thank you, Jasmine, for your contribution and this discussion today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you, Manoj.
Guys.
Bye.
Thank you, and signing off now.